Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So today we have a Hela list, and it's not one that curbs and looks for consistency. It is one that I am assuming looks to gain a lot of cubes very quickly. We got this from the Battle Arena Showdown. They ran a recent tournament that was 128 players. This was one of the top 4 finishers for their most recent tournament. In a flood of Thanos lists, this one was able to rise almost to the top. And how does that happen? This deck looks like it is very RNG heavy. And so what I'm thinking is, for a battle mode, you can really start leaning into the RNG whenever it looks like it is in your favor, or whenever you have the potential to resummon. And you can snap earlier or more aggressively, or retreat out for lower cubes and have less games that go all the way to the end, unless you're confident, fairly confident, in your wager in how that end game is going to go. And so overall, the list has just a couple of discard components. It has the Blade, Lady Sif, and Swordmaster. And then it has your Black Cat, which will help you get a free discard if you draw into it before turn 3. It has Jubilee, which I think is one of those that I didn't necessarily think about how important that card can be in a Hela list. Not only does it have a chance to pull into Hela if you don't have Hela in hand, but it also has a chance to thin your deck. So if it hits your Infinite, your Giganto, your Odin, or any of your discard cards, and you're still digging for your Hela, all of a sudden it went from a 1 out of 4 chance on that last turn, so a 25% chance, to a 1 out of 3 that you draw into it on the last turn. That's if you drop her on 5. If you happen to be able to do it on Kamar Taj, hit it twice, you pull into it, it hits Odin, then pulls another one, it can help increase your chances even further. But even just the bare minimum, it's going to give you an extra 8% chance on that particular game, on that particular draw, to pull into the card that you need. Which, thinning your deck at all in a Hela list can be the difference between being able to resummon 45 power or just having a 14 power Giganto to play onto the board. And so overall in my testing, this list has done decently. I wouldn't say it's the best Hela list I've ever played, but I think it does have some merit, especially if it's able to get that far in a tournament. It may shine a little bit more on a tournament setting where you can really start gaining that information about what kind of deck your opponent's running, so that you can know if they have hard counters to what you need to do. Or you just lean into the RNG casino and you can start playing your odds and leaning into those and then just hoping for the best. But overall, I think the list is pretty decent. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Does this deserve a spot in a tournament that had 128 competitors, making its way into the top 4 against some very competitive and very strong decks? With the brief deck explanation out of the way, we're going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, first up we have Skarzard. The first location is Sinister London, so it's not terrible for us actually. We are going to get the Black Cat that gets discarded automatically. We have our Lady Sif that as of right now will hit our Death and then our Infinite, which, I mean, if we're leaning all the way in for Hela, we could do a double Jubilee as well from the Sinister London, which would give us a pretty good likelihood to eventually pull into our Hela. Now, something that this list does not do very well, I don't think, is compete against a Galactus deck, which is not as common in a competitive environment, but can still happen. We're going to go ahead and play double Jubilee. We're going to see if we hit it or not. I think they're probably playing Sandman or Electro Ramp, something that will likely eventually have a Dr. Doom that can go wide. And we get the double discard from, or the double pull from our Jubilee. We still end up missing Hela. So now we have 3 cards left in our deck, 2 turns to potentially pull it in. And so we have a very good chance to pull into it. Now, they did use a Doc Ock, so this does look like a Galactus, actually. The more I look at it, the worse it feels. Oh, no. Well, we are just going to skip, and we're going to get Galactus straight to the face. Now, the only upside that we have here is that if we skip, if they Galactus, if we pull into our Hela, they have initiative. We could pull back into some really high power plays. Our Infinite, Odin, Death, Black Cat, all fantastic. Now, does that beat a null? I don't think so, but we're going to find out. They didn't snap on us, so we're going to play the Hela. We're going to see what gets pulled in, what gets resummoned. And we have a shot, unless they have like the highest high roll. The Destroyer is not going to be able to do it. Even though they got the Galactus play off, we're going to have a massively stacked lane. We have the Black Cat and Odin, which are our lowest rolls, and then the Death, which is our complete low roll. We could have gotten 20, but we ended up getting, we could have gotten an extra 20 in either of those slots, but we ended up with a total of 33. Now, it still probably wouldn't have beaten the Null had that come down, but we are still perfectly happy with the results. Let's go ahead. That's actually 4 in a row. I did 2 test runs with the deck, and I was like, that's really RNG based. And then the third one is the one that I used in the deck explanation, and now this one. So that's 4 in a row. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one and see if this insanity can continue. All right, next up we have Cheater Bot, and they actually just beat us. We calculated incorrectly. They're running a Mr. Negative Black Panther deck, and I thought we had a pretty sleek outplay, but I did my math wrong. I was 2 off, and so we tied and lost the point differential. So we are out for revenge. Last game, we did not, as you could tell, draw our Hela. It came down, it was still very, very close, but it wasn't quite what we needed to find our win. So actually here, I'm going to thin our deck. I'm going to thin our hand, rather. I'm going to do Lady Sif. We're going to discard Death. If this pulls into Jubilee, fine. If it pulls into Odin, fine. If it pulls into Swordmaster but doesn't discard Odin, then maybe we play that one there eventually as well. But either one, having it stacked there, I think is beneficial just in case Odin does come down. The Arnhem Zola comes down for them, which is not what they wanted. The Ironheart does turn into a Hulk, but I don't think that's going to be quite enough or quite what they need. So we're going to go ahead and skip. We're going to float. We have 2 not great resources discarded. We have the Death, which is decent, and then Jubilee. So Jubilee would come down to a complete Hail Mary. So we're actually going to skip and float some additional energy with our Sunspot, and then now we do have our Hela. So we have a pretty good shot of being able to come back and get a little bit of revenge after our math went pretty poorly the first time around. They did get Mr. Negative, though. So, ooh, wow. Interesting. They did Zabu and Mystique to copy the Zabu. Their 4 costs are now 2, so it's the original Zabu, but they had to go through a lot of extra steps to get there. Let's do the Hela in mid. We'll see. Jubilee, when it's resummoned, could bring in a Giganto, a Blade, a Black Cat. They did end up retreating. So, unfortunately for us, we don't ever get to see exactly what Jubilee resummons. But we had a couple of really good ways to try to find a way to win. We will take it. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Anime Freak. The first location is Eternity Range. They're running Thanos. We checked their deck size. I had a couple of people that were asking how I knew it was Thanos before any cards were played. If they have a deck size of 15 starting off or 14 after the first draw, it's guaranteed to be a Thanos. So they play Quinjet in the Eternity Range. They can play all of their stones for free. I think we're just going to discard as much from our hand as possible. We know that they probably have a Leech. They probably have a Shang-Chi. So we don't really want to get our power out on the board early. And then with the Sunspot, I doubt that they have a Killmonger to lean in on. They played Reality Stone in the right lane, and it turned directly into Murder World. They can get a little bit of benefit in Hellfire Club just because the stones are now 0 and not 1. Otherwise, this would be a tough location for them. I'm going to go ahead and play Black Cat in the left lane. I don't really want a rock there. Okay, so they play Lockjaw, and then they rotate a Power Stone. It could be just about anything. I guess we're going to play Black Cat in the right lane instead. They do get the rock, so we're okay with that. That's actually probably a little bit more beneficial for us. They could rotate. They didn't play Time Stone, so they can't play a Leech. We don't have any of our discard cards. We discarded Lady Sif, unfortunately, with our Blade, and so we're currently at the mercy of the game. We're currently at the mercy of the game and deciding when and where they want to do their things. So we could do Jubilee. If it pulls Hela and then resummons our Lady Sif, we could potentially do an Odin to re-trigger it. That would be very, very specific, though. We also have the chance that it pulls into Swordmaster, and then we can resummon with Hela next turn. But either way, doing Jubilee here is going to give us a better chance, a better percentage chance to pull into the cards we need. They did play just a leech and rotated on 5, which flipped into Magneto, so they got a high roll out of it. We do pull into Hela, so we resummon the Lady Sif, which does discard our Odin, had our Infinite, which is awful. Had our Odin not been hit with Leech here, we could re-trigger the Lady Sif, or we could re-trigger the Hela, which would then resummon that card. We could also play it naturally onto the board, but unfortunately, the Leech play was a bit too strong. Captain Marvel is now leeched as well, so we're pretty defenseless. This middle lane becomes unwinnable because of the 3 power into 12 flip. Ooh, but they retreat. Interesting. Either they felt really bad, or they didn't have anything good to follow up with. I'm thinking maybe they had just like a Thanos. They didn't know where to play it. I don't know. I still feel like a Devil Dino or a Thanos or something here would have been fine. We'll take it. We will take the win. I don't feel like we earned that one, so let's jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Solverstein. The first location is the Baxter building, which with how much power we can resummon onto the board, we can oftentimes, I think, probably win that one. Now, we get an extra draw here, which is Death, so it's the trigger for our Lady Sif. We're going to skip on 2. We don't have our Sunspot to absorb some of the soak, unfortunately. But, that is okay. It is what it is. So let's go ahead and play our Widow's Bite into Nidavellir, which is a decent place for it. We're going to play Lady Sif to the left. They play a Debris, so they're running a pretty standard, classic-looking junk deck. Which, the more spots of ours that are clogged, I mean, they don't typically have a really high power ceiling, which might be our only solace, is that they can't do a lot of power. They can just be kind of disruptive in general. But we'll see. They could send us a negative hood. They could do the Titania and the Green Goblin combo, which is always my favorite. Oh, so no, it's not a straight Debris deck. It's something different entirely. If that runs an Iceman and an Iron Fist into a Mojo. Maybe this is the one that runs... I don't know. This wouldn't make sense to run Killmonger because that's going to clear up this lane and they're not going to be able to lean in on that. I don't know. We'll see. We have discarded our Black Cat and our Death. And so we're going to skip here. We will play Hela in the right lane. Ooh, so no, it's like more of a movement value deck that runs the Iron Fist, the Miles Morales, maybe an Arrow as well. I'm going to go ahead and play Hela. We can resummon 2 decent cards, the Death being 12, and then the Black Cat just from the kind of pity discard, which is kind of why she's in the list, and I'm really glad we get a chance to use Black Cat. So they do 2 cards here, Juggernaut to push out of Nidavellir, okay, and so we do win the Baxter building, I think. Maybe. We'll see. After this comes down, we'll see. We do win the Baxter building. We should swing Nova Roma. We should potentially swing... Okay, we swing Nidavellir as well. We get the 3-for-3 combo with the Hela resummoned. And it's pretty straightforward. Like, I could play this one for hours. Because you're not worrying about, ooh, I might misplay this, or I'd have to anticipate what the opponent's going to do here and play around it. It's just very straightforward. You discard, you resummon, and then you rinse and repeat. Let's jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have TTV Dreamsay. The first location is the Dream Dimension, and they're running a Thanos list. Dream Dimension, ooh, and then the Altar of Death. We can get cards into the Altar of Death decently, but they also have the ability to just destroy a lot of their stones, and then they get an absurdly large amount of energy in return. I think we're going to Lady Sif into the left lane. Then on turn 4, we're going to Jubilee into the Altar of Death. Whatever it pulls, it pulls. The only discard card we have left in our deck is Blade. And so that would be the low roll. If we get something like an Infinite, a Giganto, we're looking pretty good. And then depending on if they, I don't know, play any other cards, my goodness. They skip on turn 2 and 3 after doing the Quinjet. That is super strange. Unless they just have a completely clogged hand. I don't know what they're running. Could be the Galactus version and they just have a really bad draw. But we're going to play Jubilee into the Altar of Death. That will bring us up to 7 energy next turn. So we could do Hela if we decide we want to. We have Death that we can resummon, and then we'll see from there. And so the Jubilee comes down. They do finally play. We get Giganto in mid, which is massive. The She-Hulk in the negative zone isn't going to be perfect for them. They do ramp up as well, so they could do a Leech on this turn if they have it. So I think because of that, we are going to play... I think we play our Hela and hope that it doesn't resummon into the Altar of Death. That would be the worst possible outcome. The best outcome would be that they don't leech, and then we can just maybe play a Captain Marvel for that roving powered onto the board on the last turn. Alright, so they come down with 2 cards here. Our Death does go into the left lane, which is not... And, ooh, Mojo World is actively not good for us here. Because we can't really flood cards. We could... we can. We could. Right now we're losing in the right lane, though. And so if we just flood a bunch of junk and they use an arrow to the right, then we just end up looking... awful. I'm gonna try. All they have to do is play something over here to outpower us there as well. This feels like super risky for not a lot of potential payoff, but we're gonna do it. Depending on where they play, we might be able to make this okay. Death going into the left lane is a little tough. I kind of wish it would have went into the right lane instead. So let's see. If they do an arrow to pull their cards, we can at least tie in Mojo World. I don't know. The arrow to the left lane, we pull over our Swordmaster and our Sunspot. Depending on what they dropped here, the Sunspot of their own, I mean, I guess we had Giganto, so we were fine. Had they arrowed over to the right instead, that is where they could have done it. Since we already had the lead in the Dream Dimension, they weren't able to pull over to the right because we would have won the left and potentially the right, depending on what we dropped. So it was a tough call. We will absolutely take the 2 cubes off of a Thanos. And with that one, we are going to go ahead and end the video here. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a like and a comment down below. What are your thoughts about this version of Hela making it so far in a Thanos-heavy tournament? I mean, it does have a couple of cards that are good against a Leech. It has the Giganto and Infinite that allows you to potentially play some power onto the board. But I think it still has to get very, very lucky to be able to make those things happen. And so I'm thinking it was probably really high-stakes games, some really high-stakes snaps, maybe snapbacks into very fortunate Hela top decks or very fortunate resummon locations. I don't know, but overall in my testing it did decently. Not phenomenal, doesn't feel like the best Hela list I've ever ran, but it does feel like it can win and steal away some games. And so I hope you guys enjoy the video. As always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.